Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is truth. I would like to title this segment, Uplifting the Standard. Once again, this segment is entitled Uplifting the Standard. We were given a standard at Sinai. Our job is to uphold that standard. We have failed in that endeavor. Thus, the whole entire earth has absolutely no standard and has gone into darkness, i.e. wickedness, because those who were instructed and ordained to bring forth the light has gone into the darkness, i.e. the children of Israel. So what has to happen now? There needs to be a reviving of the children of Israel. We have to be shaken from the dust and awakened and be reminded of exactly what our purpose is within the earth, that we may bring forth the Most High's truth and his righteousness, his light, that the violence that we see and the wickedness that we see can be stamped out. So we are tasked to do a job, or were tasked and still are, and we have failed. And so this segment is going to be a reminder for you to bear witness to what you're seeing and to be reminded of your purpose. Brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws. Do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. We're not to deviate to the right hand or to the left hand. We are to walk the straight way. All right. Let's look at a few things that we're dealing with here lately. Let's start off with the pastor. I've done videos in the past pertaining to the 3 P's: the politician, the pastor, and the police. And I've actually laid out exactly how this 3-pronged fork works. The children of Israel, we know clearly that the instruction given to us that we should never place our enemies before us. No enemy should be placed in a leadership position before us. Only a man of Israel is supposed to lead the people of Israel. Moreover, only a man of Israel that walks in righteousness should ever be placed in any leadership position. For if we were to place a man that looks like us, that walks contrary to the Most High's commandments, he will fail us just like our enemies will and have. So if you are an Israelite, aka a black person in the diaspora in any of the Americas, Europe, or anywhere else, and you cast your vote, and for as long as you have been voting, and for as long as your parents and grandparents have been voting, those that you have voted for has failed you and have disappointed you, is because you were going against the grain and you were going contrary to instruction. So therefore, you can never bear fruit once you do this, because we are not to vote for anyone that is not of our people. And if we are to vote for a man that is of our people, he better be walking in the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, or he will fail us all the same. Now we're seeing a situation here with our people being killed in the streets left and right. It's been going on for centuries. Now we're just able to see it firsthand on the cameras. We are in the midst of our enemies, and thus we are treated as enemy combatants. Whether we want to fight or not, we are in a state of war. And this is something that our people must understand. You can say whatever you want to say, and you can speak nonviolence all you want. The fact that you decide to say, you know what, my enemies have got me surrounded, let me just drop my hands, I'm not going to fight, that does not stop them from swinging on you. So we have to understand, as we wake up and shake ourselves from the dust and the Most High puts his spirit upon us, we're going to be raised up an exceeding army. I need you all to understand that an army fights. Now, when we fight currently and in times past, we have been fighting our enemies. We have been trying to. But anytime we go to war with our enemies, and we are doing it without the Most High before us, guaranteed loss. Every time, not sometimes, but every time. We're not to move to face our enemies without the Most High being ahead of us. So the difference between in times past, recent past, and what we're doing now is that we're going to come before you in truth and in righteousness, walking in the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And then we're going to fight you. So when we have the Most High before us and we fight you, different outcome. We win. Have not lost when we fought our enemies and had the Most High before us. We only lose when we fight our enemies and we decide we want to do it on our own. And we want to do it while being foul. We want to go up against the unrighteous while we ourselves are involved in unrighteous acts. You do that, you lose every time. So we're seeing our people currently excited, ecstatic, that a murderer has been convicted of murder. Now, when the Most High renders righteous judgment, and every man's way will be returned upon his own head. If he's walking in righteousness and do that which is right in the sight of the Most High, that man will be blessed. If that man is doing all manner of foul, that way will be returned upon his own head as well. Strife and affliction. So what we're seeing now is our people ecstatic because a murderer has been convicted of murder. When the Most High renders his judgment upon our enemies, we're not to be excited for this thing. For if we continue to do such a thing, the Most High will turn his face away from us and will not render this judgment as we so desire it to be. So when we see this man going to jail, that's correct. We'll take no joy in that. We expect that to happen. There's no need to celebrate for that at all. He belongs in jail. In fact, I don't know how that man was still alive. And that's my personal opinion. I don't know how he stayed alive that long and still is. So we are to stand up and we're going to fight. An army fights. So when we're raised up as an exceedingly great army, our purpose is to fight. And that's going to be to fight our enemies. Now, it's very difficult to fight your enemies when before you go to battle, several of your soldiers are going to go into their homes and pray to your enemies. Let me say that one more time. When it's time to go before our enemies, to face them and to confront them and to fight them, that becomes a difficult thing to do when half of the men in your ranks are married to your enemies and half the men in your ranks will pray to your enemies. And I want that to sink in. So we have men in the midst of us who are trying to stand on both sides of the fence. And that comes to these 3 P's: the politician, the pastor, and the police. We are aware that we're not supposed to vote for these politicians. If we understand that the system is wicked, therefore no righteous man is trying to get himself in a system of wickedness. So when you see these pastors, i.e. this bald-headed man out of Georgia, Warnock or whatever his name is, this system is wicked. This man can identify this governmental system as such. Yet he chose and fought to be a part of it. No righteous man seeks to be in the midst of wickedness. None. So that clearly lets us know exactly where he stands. He wears 2 hats. He is both the politician and he's the pastor. He is twice as dangerous. We are to look at these men and scrutinize them carefully. You must understand that what we're seeing now is that our people are understanding that the politician is failing them, has failed them for decades, for centuries. Now, what they have never understood is why that politician has failed them. Now they do. They can go through the scrolls and understand clearly, all my votes have failed me. All the men that I have voted for, they have failed me for the simple fact that I have walked contrary to the Most High's law. I have voted for a man that is not of my people. I have made an attempt to put an enemy to lead me. And that's why that has failed. So you're going to see us start removing ourselves from this quote unquote political religious system. It is both. The system of government of these European nations that has enslaved my people, that has enslaved our people, that system of government is known as Christianity. And you can look at all of the enslavers throughout the earth. The British, the Dutch, the French, the Portuguese, the Spanish, you name all of these European nations that have been involved in the slave trade and the murdering of our people throughout the earth, not just in one place. These are all Christian nations. Every last one of them adhere to Rome. For Rome is the head of the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church has been splintered. This is how you have the evangelical churches known as the Christians or the Protestants, same thing. So this is a system of government. That's why all of these European nations, they maneuver together. One goes to war, the other one is with them. So we must understand that we are at war with our enemies. And anyone that seems to paint our enemies as people other than some arbitrary figure that we can't touch, it is not so. The man that is shooting us, we can see him on the video. The people that are killing us, we can see them on the video. And we must understand that when our enemies, even though they saw this man murdered another man, they are upset that the murderer got justice or the murderer got put in jail and he was convicted of murder. Can you imagine the wickedness of a people that would see another man murder a man and will be on the side of the murderer? And so you have chosen lawlessness, therefore this is what you got. So now you're seeing your enemies before your own face and you still can't believe it. You can't believe the wickedness that you're seeing. We have made an error. We saw a group of unrighteous individuals in the days of old. And we figured, you know what? We want to be unrighteous too. We wanted to join them. We want to join this gang of thugs. We wanted to join these unrighteous people. But when we did that, we did not know what we were getting into. So we figured we were just going to get in there and do some petty theft, some petty crime, some petty sin. But then we realized that these people are doing some things that we were not prepared for. We don't have the stomach for. We don't have the stomach for the pedophilia. We don't have the stomach for the murder, for the lies, for the deception, for the war, for the chemical warfare, and all these other foul things. So now that we're in this mess, we're realizing, well, this is not what I really signed up for. I just want to do a little sin here and there. I didn't want to do all of this. And that's where we are as a people. We're now in the belly of the beast, so to speak, and we're seeing all this wickedness and we want to withdraw our hands. And it's about time that we have come to the realization that this is wickedness and that we ought to withdraw our hands. But before we actually got to that point, we had to actually go down all the avenues of approach. We took them all. And when we took them, it led us to a dead end. So now we've got to go back to where we started, and that being the days of old, that being at the beginning. And so now we have to reconsider our ways and our doings and make them good. As it pertains to these pastors, we clearly see now that the politicians are not doing us any good. We're understanding that. So therefore, our people is going to start withdrawing from this wicked system and not partaking in it. That's going to cause it to crumble. We see now that our people are doing what they should have been doing as it pertains to this police. We know the injustice has been a collusion between these three P's. And the police have been getting away with murdering our people for quite some time. But our people have allowed this. And now it's getting to the point to where our people are not allowing it anymore. And that's going to increase. So we're going to go after the politician. How so? We're not going to partake in his voting. We're not going to partake in trying to be partakers of wickedness. We're going to withdraw our hands from that system. Once we start to do this, that system crumbles. Now, it comes down to the police. There is the organization known as Black Lives Matter. As a quote unquote black man, Black Lives Matters to me. And it better matter to me. And once it matters to me, I will make it matter to you. What do I mean by that? You've got a man that came up with some cryptocurrency, made some currency out of thin air. Just like the European has made currency out of thin air, a dollar. The most highest currency is gold and silver. That's how we deal with things. But they have made up fiat currency, and now they've came up with cryptocurrency. These are things that have no value. However, this man has taken these things and said this thing has a value of XYZ. And you are able to barter for goods using this currency. Therefore, I have deemed this to have this particular value. Not only have they given it a value, they can also devalue that. And all of a sudden, everyone else has followed suit and say, okay, well, if you say this $5 bill is worth $5 and I can get X amount of goods with this $5 bill, then that must be so. Therefore, we have fallen in line with the value of that quote unquote currency. What I'm trying to get you to understand is this. Whatever is valuable to you, you can make that valuable to others. So when we start speaking of Black Lives Matter, it matters to me. And so therefore, I'll make it matter to you. We cannot have one rule in our house and a totally different rule in the street. I've made this statement in times past. When any quote unquote Israelite, when an Israelite quote unquote black male, when any black man in any city or any country kills another black man, and it is done in unrighteousness, I'm talking straight up murder, every man in his house, meaning his father, his brothers, his uncles, and his cousins, and every man in that city should rise up against him. He shouldn't be allowed to breathe past the end of the day. Once we set that standard in the midst of ourselves, then that will be established in the midst of other people, that these people are not to be played with in this fashion. Their lives value and matters to them. And if it matters to us, we'll make it valuable to you, and you will respect it. But once we continue to let one of our men murder another one of our men, and everyone want to sit quiet like they didn't see it and they didn't hear it, you can't possibly be such a hypocrite. You allow a murder of one of our sons or one of our daughters or one of our 5-year-old by a drive-by shooting. You let that go, but our life only has value when a white person kills us. And let me tell you why that is. Because when you kill another black man, there's no punishment for it. When you kill another black man, ain't no payment for it. But when a white man kills you, you can get some money for that. And that is the sick, disgusting behavior of our people. And no woman should ever deal with any man that's going to have his son killed unjustly and that man go in the back and get some money. It's a disgusting thing. And we're going to have to understand that. So, as our men rise up and shake ourselves from this dust, from this wickedness, from this darkness, and we clean ourselves up and hold the Most High's light before us, what we will do, we will uphold the standard. The life of every Israelite, the life of every AKA black person is valuable. And anyone that inflicts harm and brings death and pain to one of our people and has done it in unrighteousness, we're going to punish him. This term accountability can mean all sorts of things. The word punishment means one thing. You're going to pay for what you've done. And you're going to pay for it at the hands of your own people. And once we set that standard in the midst of ourselves, I guarantee you that all these other nations that have been doing what they have been doing will stop. Simple. You murder one of our sons, you're not going to make it till dark. You're not going to make it, because our own men are going to rise up against you. and there'll be nothing the other nations can do to stop it. And then we'll set the precedent that if anybody else outside of our nation harms one of our sons or our daughters, we're coming to your house, just like we have been doing, but we're not going to stand outside of the front door. And once we set this precedent in the midst of them, there'll be nothing they can do about it. But once again, before we do this, we have to be walking in Torah. We have to be walking in the Most High's commandments. We have to have the Most High's light before us. And we start doing this, I'm telling you, it's all going to stop. So we must first correct all this mess that's sitting in the midst of us. No black man should be allowed to murder another black man, and black men sit by and act like they didn't see it and they didn't hear it. That includes the men and the women. So some of our men that's now in quote unquote leadership roles, somehow we are a people that allow those who have been harmful to us and have been enemies to us in times past, somehow we let these jokers lead us. The drug dealers and the pimps and the hustlers and the ex-murderers and cons and these individuals. Somehow they get a leadership position. I don't know how that's even possible in the midst of righteous people. So we must first admit all the songs and the big, the popular people, the popular entertainers, these are all wicked individuals. If we took them and put them up against the law, this is clear. So these are the people that we honor and glorify. As we become aware of who we are and what we're supposed to do as far as the standard that we're supposed to uphold, we're going to take these people and we're going to remove them from the list of what's important and who's important. So we are to take these individuals that's murdering our people and we are to punish them in the midst of our own people. And certainly as we start to do that, it'll be easy for our men to collectively get together and go punish a stranger that does harm to one of our sons or our daughters. In fact, they wouldn't even think of it. So this is where we are as we get ready to do this. Now, many of our men aren't men. This is one of the things that we have to deal with. Many of our men are cowards, homosexuals, just straight up gutless men. And let me share a personal account with you before we continue. There's a young man that has made an error. That he figured that he could threaten the life of my seed. Me being a man, I will go for no such thing. And I was at his house. And I was not there for a conversation. My intent, I will not say here what I would have done had I found him. But he has the message clear, and his parents have the message clear, that you're not to play with my seed and you're not to play with my house. And when you threaten the life of anyone in my house, your life is on the line. So I'm not playing any games with them. And this is an Israelite. I don't know exactly how many rap videos he's seen to where he figured he could try or pull the stunt that he tried to pull. But a man of my caliber will not go for that. And it's been made clear to him, and it's been made clear to his father. And my view is they're both cowards, and I made that known to them. So once we start standing in this righteousness, we're going to start weeding out these cowards. We're going to start weeding out these men that's going to beat up on our women. We're going to start weeding out these men who are going to pimp out our women. We're going to start weeding out these men who's going to encourage and entice our women to lay down with each other in this, what you would call this homosexuality, this lesbianism. These men are destructive to us. And many of you sitting in the church are doing this. Many of you standing in the midst of us are doing this. It's destroying our people. And you are all enemies unto me and enemies unto my people. And when these people realize that you're enemies unto them, we're going to come see you. As for this pastor, I want you to understand this. This is a warning to you, pastor, reverend, layman, deacons, and all you other foul individuals that's teaching our people that some white man died for them and somehow they're going to be taken up into the sky and this man died on Easter and all this other nonsense. You see us withdraw from the politician. You see us now taking it to the police and having them punished. You are up next, Pastor. Pastor, you are next. And when these people come for you, they will not be stopping at your front door. You owe them. You owe them for all the money you've been stealing from them for centuries, for decades. Our elderly women are in your churches. You're stealing their money. You're causing them to give you money they don't even have. You're fleecing them. Our children are in these churches. You're sexually molesting them. Our wives are in these churches. You're laying down with the wives of men that come to see you. And these men are so dumb they don't even know it. You're untrustworthy. You're dangerous. You're an idolater. You walk contrary to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So as the system is being unraveled, they're giving away money to the people for the simple fact that the system is crumbling. We're withdrawing from the politician. That's causing the system to crumble. The people are now seeking justice at the hands of the murderers. So now the police are under fire. And the next be under fire are you foul, funky pastors. And when the people are given a chance to render justice towards you, they're going to kill you. So you got a choice to make at this point. You're going to A, stop stealing these people's money. You're going to stop molesting these children. You're going to stop running through these women. And you're going to stop laying down with these men's wives. And you're going to stop lying to them about somebody died for them when the law clearly states that's an impossibility. So you've got a choice to make. A, you're going to make a correction and teach the holy people that which is holy, or you can wait till the day comes that they come for you. And when they do, it's just going to be like in the days of old, when we came for those pastors that was teaching this idolatry, and the Most High made it clear exactly who is serving him and who's serving him not, who is leading his people in the way that is right and who were not. The ones that were doing things incorrectly and leading the people astray, they killed them. So your life is on the line when you decide to get up before these people in this idol house and tell these lies and intentionally mislead them in order to be financially paid. You're in bed with this police. You're in bed with these politicians. You're in bed with this system called Christianity. It is a government. And when that government starts to fall, there's going to be no one to catch you. Your own people is going to turn against you. This is something we should know. Now, these pastors, they're traitors. They want to play both sides of the fence. When the victory is given, when justice is handed out, and that murderer is convicted of murder, then you see all the idolatrous pastors standing up before the mic, acting like they are with the people. These same traitors are going to go into the back and sit down and talk to these Europeans and get contracts on their TV channels, etc., etc., etc. They're playing both sides of the fence for their own financial benefit. These men are traitors. That's Al Sharpton and the rest of them. So these men are not multimillionaires on accident. They're robbing you, and they're getting paid by their enemies. These are what you call double agents. They're all going to pay for it. And they're doing it all for money. Now, let's deal with the sexual diseases that's plaguing the nation. The latest statistic shows that STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, plural, have been on the rise for 6 consecutive years. Now, I've told you in times past, this man is a wordsmith. The European is. He will take the same exact thing that has one meaning, and he will give it two totally different words. And it's the same thing. The banker, the broker, and the bookie are all the same guys. One might wear jogging pants, one might wear a suit and tie. Same function, same purpose. So they've taken the word plagues and they've said now it's a disease. Look, here's what's simple. If you are taking part in any kind of sexual debauchery, the Most High is going to plague you for that which you are doing that's incorrect. It's a plague. They call it STDs. No, it's a plague. When you take your phallus and insert it in another man's rectum or in a woman's rectum, this is disgusting. This is against the order. When you take your mouth and put it in some or close to someone's rectum or anything of this nature, you're going to get plagued for these things. So when you see these sexual diseases increasing, it's the Most High plaguing the people for doing that which is against his laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. This homosexuality, this lesbianism, and all the other foul things that's taking place. We're going to have to separate ourselves from the people that are doing these sorts of things, because the Most High is going to plague them. He's going to kill them. So you have to clean up your act. You have to go through this law and see exactly where am I in error pertaining to that which was instructed to us in the days of old. And when you come across that, okay, well, let me change this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I can't eat that. This is conforming to order. That way you walk a straight and narrow path. You are not allowed to do what you want to do. You're not. You are to be restrained. You are to be confined, because a human's mind can run all over the place. And when you start participating in sexual debauchery, then what's going to happen is you're going to go off the rails. When you go off the rails, there you will find yourself in a 100-foot drop. It's going to kill you, or it's going to do you harm. Many of our people, our women, are plagued, and our men are plagued with sexual diseases. AIDS, hepatitis, syphilis, you name it. The list is long. Our people have been plagued by this. This can be easily fixed. Return to the Most High's law. Do not run through our women. When you run through the daughters of Zion, that's a great sin, because you're taking the daughters of the Most High and you're actually abusing them. You're laying down with them without any commitment. You're having babies with them without any commitment. You're laying down with a woman, and then when a child is about to be conceived, you give her money so she can go to the clinic to kill it. And you're both parties to murder. What are you doing? You're murdering God's people. You are God's people who are murdering that which you have been blessed to raise up, your own child. So when people start doing this sort of thing, you can't expect to be blessed. How could you lay down with a woman, she becomes pregnant, and then you give her a couple of $100 so she can go kill the child, and you both are in agreement for this foul behavior, and you expect your life to be smooth after you have done this? Do you realize that there is such a thing as a God, and that he will punish wrongdoing? And do you not understand that when you murder your own child, that is wrongdoing? Some of you may not, because some of you are so crazy and so foul that you will murder your own child yourself if you can get paid for it. So if you're willing to pay to kill your own child, certainly you'd be willing to let someone kill him so you can get paid. And that's what you're doing when they murder your sons, and you go in the back and get the check, and then you go grab a pastor or go grab someone else to come forward and say, you know what, calm down, go to the house, don't be upset. See, our people are waking up. We're getting smarter. We realize that once your son get killed, our sons are next. So we're not going to buy it when you come forward and say, you know what, calm down, everyone go back to your house. My son loved the Lord. He was a good Christian, He wouldn't want you to rise up. These are Christian talking points, aka white supremacist talking points that's used to calm down our people. The great news now is that's not working. Our people are not listening to this nonsense. It has not worked back then, and it's not going to work now. So we're beginning to understand when your son get killed, our son is next. And what we're not going to do, the ones of us who have any sense, we're not going to sit back and wait for our sons to die before we take action. We're going to go ahead and start fighting right now. We're going to fight right now. As we become an exceedingly great army, our army fights. Men like T.D. Jakes, men like Creflo Dollar. I'm certain somebody know these men when they were 10, 15, 20, 21, 25. These men don't, their whole demeanor don't say nothing about fighting. Don't say anything about standing up. You expect those men to lead you against your enemies? You got to be kidding me. Those men are not leading you anywhere. They'll lead you to the ATM so you can pay them. But they're not going to lead you in opposition to their enemies, because our enemies are their buddies. That's who cutting them the checks. That's who's allowing them to have these 501(c)(3)s, to have this tax exemption so that they can have this money. But in order for you to have this money, you've got to teach a doctrine that's friendly to our opposition. That's the agreement they have made with their enemies. So if you think that these men are going to lead you up against your enemies, they're not. They are in cahoots with your enemies, and they are not leading you to fight anything. That's why nothing they speak of is in direct opposition to the system of wickedness that we're in. Why? Because they are partakers in that system of wickedness, and that system of wickedness shields them, and that system of wickedness pays them. They're part of it. So we've got to understand exactly what we're dealing with and why we're dealing with it. We made a bad bet. We made a bad deal. We wanted to be like other people. We joined them. And when we joined up with them, we realized, man, y'all are doing wickedness that's off the rails. I really didn't expect all this. I just want to do a little petty crime. You're into murder and sexual trafficking and child molestation and pedophilia. You're doing more than I had bargained for. That's pretty much where we're at. We wanted to be like the wicked people. Now we're in the midst of them, and the wickedness is more than we can stomach. And so now we're looking for an out. But there is an out. That out is the Most High's law. The Most High law is how he extends mercy unto us. That's how we are reconciled unto him. And in saying that, that makes clear that no one has ever died for you, because by way of the law is how your sins are forgiven. All you have to do is get upon your knees, lift your hands in prayer, face Jerusalem, acknowledge your faults. You are to face that one city where that one house was. From the many nations of your captivity, you face that city, face where that house was, and you make your supplication towards the Most High for all the foul that you have done. Once you've done that, don't do it anymore. And that goes for the Israelite as well as the non-Israelite people of the nations who are turning towards the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, because the European, many of them have been lied to also. So this pertains to you too, if you're not an Israelite. Now, here's the other part of this whole dynamic. In times past, and we're still seeing it now, that they will get the unrighteous European and stick him in the jury box. And the unrighteous European will let off the murderous unrighteous European. It's going to get to the point to where you're going to have Europeans who are going to adhere to standard. They're going to adhere to law. Everyone at this channel is not an Israelite. Everyone that looks at these videos don't look like me. Some of them are Europeans. They're white. And any unrighteous European that hears this can't stand it. Any man that is a righteous man, that is a European, that understands this law, he will hear it and say, well, that is so. My people have been foul to these people for centuries, if he has any righteousness in him. And not only that, he's going to seek to rectify that unrighteousness. So what we're going to have now is that these government officials and these defense attorneys are going to have a tough time finding unrighteous white people to go along with their unrighteous acts. So now when you get them in the jury box, you're trying to get some white people in there that's going to be unrighteous and turn a blind eye to murder. And that's going to be more difficult to do as we start teaching them what we want them to learn. What are we going to teach them? We're going to teach them the righteousness of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And these people are not stupid. They will read, and they will listen, and they will investigate. And once they find out what's really going on, many of them, a lot of them, is going to turn to this law. And so now the defense attorneys, they're not going to know who they've got before them. Well, can I trust you to do that which is totally wrong and unrighteous and turn a blind eye to this injustice? And they're going to find out that's going to be harder to do as we start teaching our people and other people what we want them to learn. Now, next, in the protest that we're seeing with all these people, there are many white people in the midst of our people protesting. Some of them are traitors in the midst of our people there, and their intent is malicious. And there's some of them who are there in righteousness and in truth. I have told you in times past, in videos past, that our enemies are coming. They're going to come to join you and walk in the way of the Most High, and they're going to come to kill you, depending on what side of the fence you're on. Now, the Most High made it plain that once we return back onto his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, that he will cause our enemies to be at peace with us. Now, when a European or someone else other than of the children of Israel comes to your aid, and it is being done in righteousness and in truth, because the Most High has caused him or her to be at peace with you, what you are not to do is to be at war with them. It's an unrighteous thing. And you will be given the spirit of discernment to know exactly which route they're coming, i.e., are they coming to do harm to you, or are they coming in righteousness to walk and fight with you? You're not going to be able to make that distinction if you're not walking in these laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. For I have seen some Europeans out here that's actually protesting, for they can identify that what they're seeing is foul. They know it, and they're not going to go for it. So that is so you understand that there are going to be people of the nations that's going to see the unrighteousness that has been done to our people and is continuing to be done to our people, and they are not going to go for it. So not only is the house of Israel going to rise up in righteousness and for righteousness, so will people of the nations, that's European and others. So as this thing takes root throughout the earth and you're seeing people rise up, they are rising up and crying out to the Most High for righteousness and for justice. For there is none right now in the earth. For the people of the earth know not what the Most High's law is. So we've got to keep these things in perspective and understand, yeah, our enemies are at war with us. And what we don't have the luxury of doing is, okay, well, you're at war with me, I'm not going to fight you. No, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to fight you. However, I'm going to fight you with the Most High before me. That changes the game. That changes the game. So we have to raise up warriors, men who are going to fight, men who, when the gavel of justice is given into their hand, they're not going to say something like, well, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, or I forgive you, and let's have some peace and reconciliation. No. I got this gavel in my hand. I'm swinging all upside your head. That's the way I'm going out. And that you will see with our people. All this forgiveness talk, we're going to learn how to put that aside. Why? Because we're going to understand that when you or anyone, whether it be an Israelite or a non-Israelite, when you wrong us in a manner that is unrighteous, we did not make the law that stated what wickedness and unrighteousness is. That law does not belong to me. It belongs to the Most High. So when you murder someone, I don't have the power to forgive you for that. As a matter of fact, there is no forgiveness for murder. You pay the price for that. So we are using forgiveness in the wrong context by trying to always find a way to forgive someone for doing harm to us. The funny thing about that forgiveness is that forgiveness is reserved for Europeans. Why? You don't forgive a black man for stepping on your shoes. Brother, step on your Jordans, straight knuckles swinging. Brother, look at you wrong. You want to fight him. You want to kill him. You want to shoot him. You don't have that same smoke for Europeans. Europeans slam your head in the ground, beat you across the head with a stick. You talking about forgiveness. You talking about let he who is without sin cast the first stone. You talking about marching. You talking about crying. You talking about begging. You're not talking about fighting. But let a brother look at you wrong. You're going to fight him. Let him step on your shoe. You're going to shoot him. Let him come through your neighborhood and he don't belong there. How is it that our people could be in such dysfunction across the earth to where one brother can't even walk through another neighborhood where his own people lives? This is the ignorance of our people. And this ignorant mindset cannot change until we turn to this law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Now, with that said, Most High is removing rappers. All these rappers who have presented themselves to be foul have taken all the foul debauchery that they have been involved in and that they have seen all in the midst of them. They took all of this debauchery and put it on record and made millions of dollars. And now the whole earth has been listening to this debauchery. It's part of the language, it's part of the culture, it's part of the behavior. All of it is unrighteous. Was unrighteous and still is. All of these men that presented this foul, Most High has been killing them. It's been killing them. It's going to continue to kill them. He's going to continue to plague their children. He's going to remove them up out of here. You cannot come before the Most High's people. Give them debauchery. Make money off of all of this debauchery that you've been presenting and giving to them for decades. And you think you're going to get away with that? All because you're going to say, well, I'm just doing that which I see. That's not going to cut it. Most High removing them young. And the ones that he's allowing to get a little older, man, he's killing them and their children. So we're going to have to understand which way we're going to have to go, because the evidence is before us. We have a choice. We can actually just believe what we want to believe, or we can go ahead and do what the Most High said he would allow us to do. I'm going to allow you to see exactly what I'm going to do to you. And then you could believe whatever you want to believe, or you could say, man, I don't believe my lying eyes. I don't believe that. So he's killing them, all those who have presented unrighteousness to our people. And he's going to start killing those of us who have taken that unrighteousness and ran with it. So there's a big cleaning up going on in the midst of our people. There's a big cleaning up going on in the midst of the nations. We are to remain rooted and anchored in this law. That way we are not removed from the earth, and our children are not removed from the earth. That way, if you live to be 70, 80, and 90, you actually have blessings that you can actually count, and that you can actually see, and that you can actually attest to. Many of our people who have lived a long life. You look at some of the people of Israel who are 80, 90 years old. You sit down and talk to them, and they have got all manner of foul that they can tell you that happened to them. How their life was not at ease. How their life has not been at peace. It's been so much trouble in their life they don't know what peace is because they've never had it. And that is true, because if you have never known the Most High, if you have never known the Most High's laws, if you have never walked in the Most High's laws, then you have never known peace, nor will you ever. So when you speak to these old Christians, these old Catholics, these old Romans, these old white supremacists, aka older black people, they've got nothing but stories filled with sorrows. Most High has plagued them. Most High has killed their children before their face. Now they're old. They're alone. Their kids have been removed from them. They're diseased, losing a kidney, needing this and needing that. And after all 40, 50, 60 years praying to an idol and all the violence that's befallen them in their life, they have not taken the time to think, well, maybe I'm wrong. I've been going to church for 50 years. I've been paying my tithe for 50 years. And the Most High has plagued me left and right. My life has been nothing but misery. My children have been removed from me. My body is diseased. All I've known is strife and affliction. Where did I go wrong? They're not thinking that. They continue to hold fast to that idol. Continue to think that someone died for them and someone is coming back to save them and to take them up into the sky. And many of these pastors are taking advantage of these people, especially the women. Most of the men, we are hip to game. We understand clearly what this man is and what he represents. And many of our men are not going for it. So the great separation, the great divide is in full effect. So, Pastor, watch what you're doing. Change your ways. These very people that you have been fleecing, these very people that you've been lying to, these very people that you've been sexually molesting and abusing, these people are going to come and see you. They're going to lift up this standard. How are they going to do it? We're going to teach them to do it. That's how we're going to teach them what righteousness is. And once they learn what righteousness is, they're going to understand that you represents everything that righteousness does not. They're going to come and see you because the people want a change, a change from wickedness unto righteousness. And righteousness bring forth justice. Righteousness bring forth peace. There's nothing that we have to hope for. Hoping and wishing, we've been doing that. We've been hoping. Everyone brings a story of hope. Everyone brings a campaign of hope to our people because we're always in a state of hopelessness. Once we turn to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, that's an act. That's not wishing and that's not hoping. The law, these are actions you've got to do. And once you do those actions, then you get reward. You don't sit in a place and hope. And that's where we have fallen victim. We have allowed individuals to bring us pipe dreams. But because we lack the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and that we are in such a state of hopelessness, we are willing to believe anything that's told to us by anyone that we feel may possibly improve our circumstance. And every time we fall for it, we're always disappointed because none of it has ever worked. We're expecting something for nothing. If you want to be at peace, if you want to be able to live long, live prosperous, live without your children being killed and without being full of sorrows, etc., you're seeking peace. If you see your son murdered and you'd like to see justice for that, then you're seeking righteousness. To get those things, you have to be walking in the Most High's law. You cannot be unrighteous and expect righteousness and righteous judgment to be given to you. You're an unrighteous individual. It doesn't go that way. It's hypocrisy. So let's uplift the standard in the midst of our people. You kill one of us, we're not letting that go. And let me touch on this shortly. Many of our men are running in gangs. Many of our men are running in the midst of murderers. Many of our men, some of whom will hear this, will know, hey, you know a man that murdered one of our sons. You know him, and you have not turned that man in. So you are allowing a murder in the midst of our people. I want you to understand that you are in error when you do this. The Most High said our cities are full of blood. Blood is on our hands. You can't lift bloody hands up to the Most High. So all these men that's in the midst of us, those of you who are doing foul things, turn that murderer in. You know a man that shot one of our sons. He was 5 years old. Came by in a drive-by shot, killed one of our sons, missed his intended target. You hanging out with him, drinking with him, thinking that he's your buddy, knowing that man will kill you. These men are enemies unto us. Turn that man in. Let's get all the murders from the midst of us. Let's make it to where our lives matter to us, and we'll make it matter to everyone else. So don't go around killing your own people, and then you start thinking, okay, well, it's okay for me to kill my people, but if somebody else killed my people, then I'm going to rise up. That is a double standard. That is hypocrisy. That is unrighteousness. The Most High will not back that. So, once again, let's make our lives matter to us first. Anyone that kills one of our men, he pays for it with his own life. Simple as that. We don't care what his occupation is. Let's start that in the midst of ourselves. And then, that same law apply in the street. You kill one of our sons, well, all of our men going to rise up against you. And no one's going to stop us if we're keeping that law before us. We don't care what his occupation is. Could care less. But we're going to make our lives matter to us first. That way we can get the Most High on our side. We can get our families reconciled onto the Most High. We can have our men reconciled onto each other. We can have our women reconciled back onto us, and the whole family becomes healed. Now we're operating as a family unit like we were supposed to, like we are supposed to. And when we operate, we do not operate before, unless the Most High is before us, meaning we operate within this law at all times. So that concludes this segment. We're to lift up the standard. We're to lift up that standard in the midst of ourselves. That is the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. We're to lift it up out in the street. The same law that we have in our house is the same law that we are to have in the street. We're not to have it to where, you know what, you beat up your wife in the house, but then you go out in the street and you're talking about women's rights and trying to protect women when the one you've got in your house, you punch her in the face. You're talking about going out here and defending the life of the black man that was killed. You out here beating up black men, harassing black people, feeding them drugs, alcohol, and you killing them. That's okay when you do it. But when someone else do it, you want to stand up and you want to rise up. Doesn't work that way. Let's change our ways. Let's turn back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Let's lift our hands in prayer. Let's face Jerusalem. Ask the Most High for his forgiveness and his ever-loving kindness and tender mercies, that he may turn our hearts back onto his law, statutes, judgments, precepts, that we may reconcile ourselves back onto him. And in so doing, he will reconcile us back onto each other. We become a loving family once again. And when you touch one of us, you are at war with all of us, and all of us will be at war with you. And you're not going to beat us because we're going to have the Most High before us. It's really that simple. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. We are standing up, an exceeding army, and army fights. And you can't go to war facing your enemies when half the men in your ranks married to them. You can't go to war facing your enemies when half the men in your ranks going to go pray to your enemies or go in the back and make deals with your enemies. So we're going to have to weed out these traitors. We've got many of them, duplicitous men, men that will stab you in the back. That's why when in times past, when our men went up and decided to lead, they had 1,000 brothers behind them, backing them. Soon as they killed the leader, those brothers disappeared, went and got jobs with their enemies. These men are traitors. These men are going to stand there and let the enemy beat them and not going to do anything. And talk about let he who is without sin cast the first stone. You're out of your mind. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is a truth. Remain anchored in this law, Israel, and remain anchored, those of you who are of a contrite spirit that may be strangers. You're still to take a hold of the Most High's law. You are not at no time to turn a blind eye to unrighteousness. When you see it, punish it. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless.